Aries, it's July 2017. Dadhichi here with the forecast, brief synopsis of what's happening in your universe, if I could coin the term. You know, there's a lot of fear going around at the moment, and as we look at the movement of the North Node, that shadowy point in the zodiac, it is moving into, well, it has moved into your fifth house. And the fifth house is, along with the third house, the mind. It's more the spiritual mind. It's more sort of a deeper level of your mind. It's called the spiritual mind, or the initiatory area of the horoscope, the creative self. It rules creativity. The movement of the North Node into this area, into the sign of Leo, which is the fifth house for you, is an interesting one because it can cast that fear over your mind. Fearful of what's going to happen, you know, how you're going to deal with all of your bills, what's going to happen to the world, that type of thing. And so it's important for you to counteract that, and especially now with the Sun, Mars, and also Mercury in your fourth house. This is the area of peace of mind. Mars and the Sun are militant planets. Mars, of course, is your ruling planet. And so there's a lot of focus in this area. And Mars and the Sun don't function well in terms of directional strength in this part of the zodiac. So that also may contribute to this lack of inner peace, self-doubt, and God forbid, that fear that seems to be sweeping the world right now. So it's important for you to take some control over that. The concern I have immediately is for the Sun to make a conjunction with Mars on the 27th. That's way off, but prior to that we see, well, it's a full conjunction, but right now we have what's called a form of combustion, where your ruling planet Mars is getting burnt up by the Sun in this fourth house, which is your domestic affairs, which is your mother, which is your family. So what can happen there is that the Sun, again, the creative mind, fear, trepidation, apprehension, can cause you to react, can also cause you to become physically debilitated. It can affect you adversely as far as your well-being is concerned, both your psychological and your physical well-being. So that's pretty much for the whole of the month. The Sun moves out of the sign of Cancer into the sign of Leo on the 23rd, and that should be a much more comfortable position for the Sun, but you still have it, probably not till next month, we'll talk about that, moving into that conjunction with the North Node. And that is not particularly good for the mind either. So this seems to be an ongoing thing over the next month of July and into August. So you have to be very mindful that you don't get swept up in all of this mass fear. You don't allow that to influence the relationships you have with your family, and most importantly, the relationship you have with yourself, because the fourth house has to do with the relationship you have with you, more importantly than any other relationship in your life. Although you do have a lovely conjunction of the Moon and Jupiter, which we see in your seventh house of relationships. So notwithstanding all this other stuff I'm talking about, you do have a great opportunity to cement your relationship with your loved one, your spouse, that nearest and dearest to you. And it's also lucky. It brings with it gifts, or even within you a sense of generosity that you want to share your feelings and your resources with that person that you love most. So I think that's a counter, although there's a square aspect between that. So you're challenged in doing that, probably because all of this insecurity, this lack of certainty, it's challenging that. You have to overcome that and use this sense of generosity of spirit to bring some equilibrium. And of course it's that sense of giving and sharing that is at the heart of, overcoming a lot of these problems that we have in life. Fear is really the opposite of love. So it tends to pull us away from the ones we love most. It it squashes that sense of openness, that sense of unity and love and connectedness that we have with other people. The career planet for you is Saturn. I'm just looking at the list here. It has somewhat of a good aspect still from the North Node, your karmic point, and also Uranus forming what's called a grand trine. But that's in the 9th house, and that's still causing you some concerns over such things as higher education, spiritual ideals. So I think that's also having something to do with some of this fear. You're probably not relying enough on your faith in the fact that life can bring you what you need when you need it without you having to interfere with that process too much. On the 9th, there is a full moon, speaking about your work, taking place in the sign of Capricorn, your professional area. That's also very, very good, and it can show a shift from all of these domestic issues that you're experiencing. The moon will be nearing the planet Pluto, so there's an intensification of your feelings, your passion towards your work, but also too, there could be some emotional power plays there, because the moon and Pluto can do that. They can actually show that you're dealing with people who are a little bit ruthless, people who want to use you for their own ends. So you have to be a step ahead of all of that stuff and make sure that you are not being taken advantage of in that area. So that is full around the 9th of July. And then around the 23rd, 24th, the moon will be moving, 24th, 25th, into its new moon phase. And that will take place in your 5th house of creativity. I would suspect that that is when you're likely to feel a lot more opening up. It's great for children if you've been finding your relationship with kids hasn't been so good. Connecting to your inner self, your inner child is able to help you connect to the outer children in your life, such as your offspring, younger people, and that sort of thing. Your ruling planet on July 2nd has an opposition to Mars. That's a little bit dangerous. That can be angry, it can be combative. You also have July 18th, a square to Uranus. These are all tough aspects. So when Mars moves into the 5th house on the 20th, I think you start to see also some greater creativity, less fear, which is what I started the reading off with, and certainly a better end to the month than when you started it. Take care. Now look, if you want some more information, visit astrology.com.au. We've got all of the textual readings. We've got the daily readings and also the year. Another 5 or 6 months left of 2017 you might want to find out about. Astrology.com.au. Take care and see you next month. Bye-bye.